Thank you so much, all of you, for being here tonight for our webinar on Israel, anti-Semitism, and Holocaust education resources. My name is Jordana Halpern. I'm the Associate Director of Planning Operations at UJA, and I'm working with an amazing team of dedicated individuals to help support our public schools during this really difficult time. We recognize that the October 7th Hamas massacre and the ensuing war between Israel and Hamas has brought with it unique and very deeply upsetting challenges for our public school educators. Anti-Semitism is on the rise in schools like we've never seen it before, and you are right on the front lines and having to manage so much. You're trying to support your students, fight misinformation. You're confronted with anti-Semitism from colleagues, navigating a lack of support from your unions. And you're doing all of this while also still continuing to provide an excellent education for your students. And meanwhile, you're also doing the best to look after yourselves, your own family, and your own friends. And we've heard from many of you just how tremendously hard it is to hold all of these things at once. And so we want you to know tonight that we are here for you. I think we're really blessed in Toronto in that there are so many amazing organizations that provide education on Israel, anti-Semitism, and the Holocaust. But also by that same token, it can be really confusing and I think at times a little bit overwhelming to actually know where to turn for the specific supports that you're looking for. So that was kind of part of the impetus for getting together tonight. We've brought together 6 different organizations to showcase how they can support you in Israel, anti-Semitism, and Holocaust education, both inside the classroom and outside the classroom. So I guess on that note, I just wanted to take a moment to thank our panelists for being here tonight. We are so appreciative for all that you do. You, like our educators, are right on the front lines and juggling so much and have taken the time to be here tonight to provide us with lots of excellent resources that will really help all of us moving forward. So to everyone on the call, I'll just say that we really appreciate that you're here. We really hope that you'll leave tonight feeling more empowered and equipped to engage in productive conversations on these topics. But if anything, I think most of all, we really hope that you leave knowing that you have a network here that wants to support you and that you feel comfortable reaching out to any of us on the call tonight. So before I get into introducing the first of our really amazing panelists, I'll just go through some housekeeping and alert you to a couple great upcoming events that we're going to be having. So first, on December 11th from 9 to 12, the UJA Israel Engagement Team, in partnership with Deborah Peretz from Israel Link, will be hosting an in-person Israel education booster. This is geared towards Jewish day school educators, but anybody is welcome to join. And the objective really is that participants will leave the workshop with knowledge and necessary tools to better integrate how Israel is taught in educational settings. Something else we're really excited for is on December 14th, the TDSB's Jewish Heritage Committee, in partnership with UJA, will be hosting a Hanukkah gathering for educators from 4:30 to 6:30 at Davisville Junior Public School. This will be a really fantastic opportunity for all of us to get together as a community, share best practices, and just simply celebrate the holiday together. So of course, there will be donuts and latkes available. After the webinar, we're going to send out a follow-up email to all of you, which will include information on how to register for this Hanukkah party and also this Israel Booster event. As for our webinar tonight, we have 6 fantastic panelists that represent 6 different organizations who work in the space of anti-Semitism, Holocaust, and Israel education. They're each going to speak for a few minutes about who they are and the various supports their organization can provide to you and your students. After we hear from each of these panelists, we're going to save 20 minutes at the end for your questions. Please use the Q&A function to submit your questions. I'll be keeping track, and we'll come back to them all at the end. Tonight might be a lot of information as we're hearing from 6 different organizations, but don't worry if you miss anything because this webinar will be recorded, and the follow-up email to this webinar will include the recording and also a link to a page with all the resources that our panelists are going to discuss tonight, as well as other resources from organizations who couldn't make it tonight. So without further ado, I will introduce our first panelist, Len Redner. Len is currently a consultant and was formerly the regional director of the Canadian Jewish Congress. Take it away, Len.
Someone was supposed to press a button. But hi, everybody. My name is Len Rudner, and along with my partner, Bernie Farber, we deliver a presentation to school boards, to police services, and to other governmental and non-governmental entities. Our presentation is a 3-hour overview of the history of anti-Semitism, the way it has developed, and the way it has manifested itself, right, in different periods from antiquity up to the present day, right? I'm going to just share my screen, and it worked before. Hopefully it will work again. And it did. Amazing. Okay, so our presentation is called Understanding Anti-Semitism, Past and Present. Okay, and what animates our presentation is a belief that anti-Semitism is fundamentally a conspiracy theory. That is to say, it is the conspiracy theory. Indeed, to understand anti-Semitism, it is necessary to understand conspiracism. The two go together and are welded together so completely, okay, that you cannot understand one without the other. For that reason, the definition that we use for explaining anti-Semitism is not one of the ones which are most in the news. For example, the IRA definition or the or any of the others, but rather we use a definition that was first coined by Theodor Adorno, who said, when asked what anti-Semitism is, he said anti-Semitism is a rumor about the Jews. And what we do through our presentation is we consider the way this rumor has manifested itself. For example, in the early days of the rivalry, if you will, between Judaism and Christianity, what explained this rivalry? What were the roots of it, and what were the results of it? Specifically, we do focus on the primary issue, and that is, the way that the Jews, because they were turned into the authors of the death of Jesus, ultimately were paired eternally with the devil. Okay, and ultimately, what we saw here was a creation of a dark yin and yang, opposing the forces of good or godliness against the forces of the devil, and the Jews very firmly and very unfairly placed on the side of the devil. This manifested itself further in the Middle Ages, right, through the expression of various libels, such as Jews poisoning wells to cause the Black Death, desecration of the host, ritual murder, and so forth. And what we do in our presentation is we explain not only what the roots of these libels were, but we also show how they transformed themselves to fit in every age. So ritual murder, for example, finds its expressions today in rumors about Israelis harvesting Palestinian organs. Okay, the rumor has been updated, but it's still in its DNA very much the same. We look at the different ways in which Jews have been presented, okay, and ultimately fulfilling the need for a personification of the ills of any age with a face. Jews are capitalists, corruptors, revolutionaries, communists, parasites. Okay, sometimes only one of these, but often more than one of these at the same time. We look at these rumors, and we see the way anti-Semitism has developed from its early phases as being a form of anti-Judaism, if you will, where the focus was not so much on Jews themselves, but rather on the religion they practiced, which left open the possibility of escaping the hatred by conversion or by disappearing into the mass of the larger society. We explore this idea, and we talk about how the rise of science and pseudoscience created the notion of scientific anti-Semitism, which was truly one where the evil of the Jew was in the bones, it was in their bones, or was in their blood. And we see how this became codified not only through the work of poor science, but also through the misunderstanding of legitimate science, such as that of Charles Darwin. We talk about Wilhelm Marr, the father of modern anti-Semitism, and indeed the man who coined the phrase. Okay, and these days I think it's particularly important that we understand this, because one of the issues that we've seen occur over and over again is people say, well, anti-Semitism isn't Jew hatred, but rather it is opposition to Semites. And one group or another will pop up and they will say, well, we can't be anti-Semites because we ourselves are Semites. Okay, this represents a fundamental misunderstanding of the word. Sometimes it's honest, sometimes not so honest, and we make a point of focusing on the roots of the word, because if we don't understand the word, then it becomes more difficult to understand the phenomena. We look at the way that Jews have been portrayed, right, as traitors, and particularly we look at the case of Alfred Dreyfus. We consider the various rumors that were in the air following the end of World War I, most notably the myth of the Durchstoß, or the stab in the back, how Germany was not defeated in the field, but rather was defeated by traitors, November criminals, and Jews who were manipulating things behind the scenes. Continuing with our notion of the importance of understanding conspiracy theories, we talk, of course, about the protocols of the Elders of Zion and the way that infamous forgery managed to transform itself from a crude piece of work produced by the Russian secret police in 1905 to work that was promoted by Henry Ford through the Dearborn Independent, and indeed how even into the 21st century, the protocols of the Elders of Zion were presented as being a way of understanding the major calamities of our time, including, of course, 9/11. Naturally, we talk about the Holocaust, but our presentation does not dwell on the Holocaust for a number of reasons. First of all, it requires much more time than we have at our disposal, but also there is an anti-Semitism is fundamental to an understanding of the Holocaust, but it is important in our mind to keep a distinction between the two. That is to say, one can study anti-Semitism and yet not burrow in deeply into the Holocaust, because the Holocaust was an outcome of anti-Semitism, but there's so much more to be said. And we do not, in a sense, want to limit our discussion to anti-Semitism to the Holocaust as a particular or a unique phenomena. We continue our discussion to the present day, where we talk about for example, such seminal moments as the riot at Christie Pitts, the discrimination the Jews faced through their early years in this country, okay, and the rise of the most vicious of all anti-Semitic rumors, and that is Holocaust denial. We consider the rise of the Canadian Nazi Party and other pseudo-Nazi entities in Canada, such groups such as Blood and Honor and Combat 18, and the rise, of course, of the alt-right. We also talk about what it is the Canadians believe in terms of conspiracy theories, and the news is disturbing, to say the least. Towards the end, we talk about anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism and the way they overlap, the way they are the same, the way sometimes they are not the same. And I hasten to point out that our presentation is constantly being renewed, is constantly being revised. So clearly, the events that we've all seen since the beginning of October are fundamentally going to change significant portions of our presentation. But for the moment, just to give you a sense of it, what we talk about are ways that anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism overlap, and ways in which they can be seen as being distinct entities. We do talk about definitions, although we do not dwell heavily, for example, on the IHRA definition or the other definitions that compete against it. From our point, the reason for that is that while we certainly acknowledge that the IHRA definition is the one that has gained the most acceptance of all the competing definitions, it is also our view that even if we were able to agree on a definition, that in itself would not solve the challenges of anti-Semitism. That the challenge we face, and I speak to you as educators, the challenge that you face is not so much defining anti-Semitism, but how best to deal with the problems that you are facing in the school. Okay, the disruption of class, okay, the feelings of harassment and fear and anxiety that are felt by Jewish students and indeed by members of the Muslim community as well, because these things are interfering with your ability to get the job done and fulfill your mission as teachers. Okay, and this section, how to respond, is one that we tailor for our particular audience. So we have one particular section that we use for teachers and another one that we would use, for example, for police services, okay, and so on. Okay, this concludes my presentation. Thank you very much for taking the time to listen, and I look forward to the questions you will have at the end of this session.
Wonderful. Thank you so, so much, Len. Next, I'm going to turn it over to Leora Schaefer, who is the Executive Director of Facing History and ourselves.
Good evening. I'm going to share my screen and walk you through some of the work of Facing History and Ourselves. We began as an organization of educators. We are an organization that was founded by educators. I myself am an educator. We are led by teachers, and our mission is to use the lessons of history to challenge teachers and their students to stand up for bigotry and hate. And we began nearly 50 years ago, and with the primary case study being the Holocaust. And we examined that historical case study and all of the work that we do in order to help young people recognize, our tagline is people make choices, choices make history. We want young people to recognize that their own choices matter. And with that lens to history, we want young people to get engaged, to become civically engaged. Through those nearly 50 years of working, we've been an organization here in Canada since 2008, working actually informally with educators in Toronto in the old school board since really the beginning of the organization in the early 80s. Our work through this time, we've recognized that we support teachers through our curriculum and through strategies and the professional development that we offer to help them see that each student receives what they need to develop their full academic, social, and civic potential. And what that means is that our students come to our classrooms able to be their full selves. And what we know right now, Jewish students are coming into public school spaces hiding parts, very important parts of their identity, feeling that it is unsafe to come into spaces feeling like they can be their full selves. And we want to make sure that all students in classrooms come with the ability to learn. And when students feel concealed, when they're zipping up a part of their identities, we know that they can't learn to their fullest potential. And so we are here to provide resources that are trusted, and professional development that help teachers. We know as educators, you are facing an incredibly challenging landscape right now. And we want to be here to help support you and partner with you as you work on the ground in very complicated contexts and an incredibly difficult, challenging time. Sorry. So in the wake of October 7th, we worked very quickly to create resources to help support teachers, knowing that you are all going to be in classrooms, and that these are ongoing. This is an ongoing situation where every day, these resources are still so important. This collection goes through how to address and respond to anti-Semitism. It's a bit of a misnomer. This is not a resource that goes into teaching the history of the Middle East. In fact, I actually think that the geopolitical situation does not need to be addressed in order to really support Jewish students in classrooms right now, and ensuring that we are not allowing anti-Semitism to propagate. Some of the resources that we've developed are now even more important for our teachers. Here are some examples, all available on our website, all for you to access anytime. These resources are lesson plans with support materials, videos, ready-made and there for you for your classroom. I hope you saw my email. You'll receive it again in the collection, but we really do want to be here in partnership. So if you have questions, if you need support, myself, my colleague Jasmine Wong are here to help you. I'm the first one to share, so I don't know if other people are also going to be sharing this resource, but this is an incredible resource that was developed by Facing History and Ourselves Canada in partnership with the Toronto Holocaust Museum and CEJA. The Unlearn Anti-Semitism is an incredible resource intended for middle school teachers to help support in ways to respond to anti-Semitism. There are 3 case studies that are part of this of this online resource that are compilations of stories, true stories told by young people in this province, animated, that are very accessible. Here's an example. This case study, Sarah, has become so much more timely and important right now. Sarah is attacked in the schoolyard for being Jewish because of what's happening in Israel, to what Israel is doing to Palestinians. And that's the words that are used by another student. And there's the case study, the video, but also the discussion guide for teachers. How do you bring a conversation about Sarah into your classroom? We're going to be offering additional professional development in partnership with the Toronto Holocaust Museum. So keep your eyes out for an email regarding that. We're just looking for a date, and we're going to really focus on how to talk about Sarah as the case study. In addition, this document is online. It's developed for parents, but it is such a helpful document looking at how to respond to online hate. It walks parents through how do the algorithms work, that a student, a young person, can start a search for one thing and find themselves going down a very, very problematic rabbit hole. So I highly recommend, even though the website is divided parents and teachers, please take a look at take a look at this parent's guide. It's very helpful. I do want to share some resources on the Holocaust, but I do want to also be very clear that as we respond to anti-Semitism, there's an impulse to bring Holocaust education as the solution. And in fact, Holocaust education is not the solution to responding to anti-Semitism. We need to look particularly at contemporary anti-Semitism in its own lens as an organization that supports teachers in teaching about the Holocaust. It is also a very important thing to do. I just think we need to be really clear on what and how we're bringing into the classroom as a response to anti-Semitism. But our resources built around our core case study, Holocaust and Human Behavior, are available online. And just to say, also, we have a course that's starting up on January 10th. Please sign up. We'd love to have teachers join. This is particularly helpful with the new grade 6 mandate, where we'll really be thinking about how we're supporting and focusing attention to the grade 6 mandate and supporting grade 6 teachers. Take out your phones. Before I shut this down, you can use the QR code. It will take you right to this landing page. And that is my sharing. And I'm here to the end to share, to answer questions at the end of the program. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Leora. Next we have Jody Spiegel, who is, next we have Jesse Primerano, who is the Executive Director of Stand With Us Canada. Hello, Jesse.
Hello, Jordana, and hi, everyone. I wanted to say a quick thank you to everyone for being here tonight. As Jordana mentioned earlier, there's a ton going on in our academic spaces right now, and I want to thank you for taking the little time that we know you have to be on this call and learn a bit more about the resources that are available to you. So, as Jordana mentioned, I'm here to speak tonight on behalf of Stand With Us Canada, and I'm excited to tell you a bit about who we are and how we can help in your pursuits right now. So I'm going to start by talking about our mission statement, just as a means of framing what I'm about to share with you. So Stand With Us Canada is at the forefront of student-led Israel education and the fight against anti-Semitism in academic spaces in Canada. We tell Israel's story of achievement and innovation, lead the fight against the BDS movement, and educate about the complexities of the Middle East. So obviously, this is our mission statement. I want to talk about a bit about how we actually put that into action, and specifically in your context and in terms of how we can support you. So the first bit is our proactive lens. And so from that, we pull the student-led Israel education element from our mission statement. And the way we do that primarily is through our year-long student leadership programs. So we have a program for high school students. We additionally have them for university and college students as well. And what this program does is takes this group of budding student leaders, we bring them out for a conference in August where they're able to learn about Israel, about the conflict, the history, to learn about contemporary and historical anti-Semitism, and to develop their leadership skills, public speaking abilities, coalition building, etc. And really a number of transferable skills outside of this space as well. And so that allows us to amplify our resources as they come back home and are responsible for running programs at their schools or on their campuses. It helps us to empower the next generation. And the reason that I bring it up tonight is because specifically in the high school space, we work on a nomination basis. So we rely on teachers, rabbis, community leaders, et cetera, to nominate students, both Jewish and otherwise, that they think would be a good fit for this program. It's completely cost-free, and they work with our staff throughout the year to develop themselves as leaders, as educators, and it's a phenomenal opportunity for high school students that we'd love for you to keep in mind as you work with particularly right now, the students that are visibly struggling and are looking to make a difference and to raise their voices. On the opposite side of the coin, our reactive work, and again, pulling from our mission statement about fighting against anti-Semitism, is where we provide strategic and legal support. And so I think that is primarily where I wanted to focus on tonight and speaking with this group. So I'm going to dive in and talk a bit about that reactive response. So do you have a problematic colleague? Do you need support dealing with your board? Are you aware of an incoming speaker or program that concerns you that you think needs addressing with your school? We have a full-time research and strategy department available to you to address your specific needs, not just now, obviously, but always. What we do is we'll sit down with you and help develop a comprehensive response to whatever it is that you're dealing with. And so what that means is, that we can put together a personalized strategy. We don't have a one-size-fits-all approach. We can work with you to figure out what exactly this issue requires and how we can help strategically affect some kind of a change. Of course, we want to do what works best for you. We understand that particularly as educators working within school boards and with colleagues, there's a number of delicate, details surrounding responding to an issue at your school or in your board. And so we want you to know that we're happy to work on your behalf and to work with you to make sure whatever we do is something that leaves you feeling very comfortable and secure in your, position in the climate that you work in, right? We don't want to, do anything that's going to leave you feeling exposed or uncomfortable in any way. So we work with you to develop whatever strategy you think is best to deal with these issues. We work with a network of pro bono lawyers as well. So in the event that legal action is required, depending on the circumstance, we have the ability to connect you with folks that can really do and affect change in a, obviously pro bono manner, in a way that we can actually manage. And we're with you every step of the way. So whatever it is that we dictate, whether it's, going media, legal, writing some sort of, public statement or open letter to the board, we're not going to pass you off to the lawyers or to whoever it might be. We're going to stand with you the entire way and help make sure that your issue is resolved, properly and with our support. Just to flip to the other side and talk about the proactive work that we do, as I mentioned, we're working with students all the time to bring Israel education to their schools, but we also work with educators to do the same thing. So if you're looking to bring Israel education or anti-Semitism awareness to your curriculum, or you need info to share with a problematic colleague that you're concerned about how they're educating their students, we have a number of offerings that we can either come in and run ourselves professionally or share with you to implement into a presentation or a program that you're running yourself. So this includes a number of phenomenal presentations. We have dozens of presentations that cover, just about every topic to do with Israel or to do with anti-Semitism. I can assure you that if there's a topic you're looking to address, we have something for you. And furthermore, we have workshops as well. So it's not all frontal presentation-based stuff. We have some phenomenal activations that we can provide you with to help engage your students, your colleagues in a interactive way. Furthermore, and I'll just pop over quickly to our educational booklets, we've got some incredible resources that we can ship to you as well to share with your students. So real quick, you can see here we have 6 categories that the booklets are sort of divvied up into. And I'm not going to sit and go through them all because, like I said, there really are dozens, but I want to just give you a quick look. So under the topic of understanding the present, we have, pocket facts, Israel 101, the people and faces that illustrate the diversity of Israel, and on and on and on. 10 things you need to know about Israel. And of course, that extensive catalog extends for all of the various topics that you might be looking to talk about in your classroom or with your colleagues. We've also got a number of incredible community programs happening right now, honestly, daily. So I encourage you to join our mailing list, which you can do on our website, which I'll share with you after to stay up to date. A number of these programs are very helpful educationally to help us frame a lot of what's going on right now. We have access to incredible public speakers, both Jewish and otherwise, that we're pleased to bring into your classroom or to speak to your school. Some of our particularly non-Jewish speakers have been really effective in the last weeks in speaking to students and helping to illustrate the existence of anti-Semitism both here and in the Middle Eastern countries that they hail from as well. And furthermore, if there are lessons that you're putting together, publications, op-eds, etc., we are happy to work with you to provide research and strategic support for those as well. Our Instagram is vibrant right now, and I encourage you to check it out in terms of collecting resources as well. But a couple more things just to share with you real quick before I wrap up. This is a real helpful tool as it relates to communicating what's going on right now. This is our situation room online. And you can see there's a great deal of information here, but if you scroll down, the most helpful bits for you will be the FAQ that provide sourced explanations of a number of very important questions that people are asking right now and responses to some of the difficult conversations that we're having and seeing online and around us. And of course, key facts about everything going on the ground as well. So I encourage you to come visit this site, the Situation Room. It's just standwithus.com/situation room to utilize some of those. And the last thing I wanted to share with you as well are our fact sheets. Again, this can all be found on our website right here under resources, but we've got some incredible fact sheets as well to help you, find sourced materials to back up the conversations that you're having. We know that these things are true, and sometimes we just need a source to help us back it up. So I encourage you to check out these fact sheets. And actually, real quickly, a big thank you for being here. I just wanted to share our website and social media. My email address is here. And I'd also like to share the contact info of our high school coordinator, Josh, who can be a fantastic asset for you in terms of sharing some of these resources that I've discussed tonight. So if you'd like access to any of what I've mentioned, if you would like to talk about us coming into your school or to come speak, to any group that you're a part of, please do reach out. And a big thank you to Jordana and the team at the UJA for inviting us to participate in this great webinar tonight. Thank you, Jordana.
Thanks, Jesse. That was awesome. So next we have Jody Spiegel, who is the director of the Holocaust Survivors Memoirs Program with the Azrieli Foundation. Jody, take it away. Oh, you're just on mute, which I just was too, so we all do it.
It's only been 3 years of this. I'll get the hang of it. Okay, thank you so much. I am the director of the Holocaust Survivor Memoirs Program at the Azrieli Foundation. I appreciate being welcome to join tonight. I'm going to echo what Leora said, that even with a proper pedagogical best practices approach to Holocaust education, and you cover the entirety of the Holocaust, which I believe is more or less impossible unless you've gotten a PhD in it and still, but to take a stab at teaching the Holocaust to elementary school, and possibly even in high school, you will not and should not be able to cover what is currently happening in terms of modern anti-Semitism. If it's done properly, there could be understanding of the images, language, and rhetoric if a student really gets it, but to properly get into it is something that won't create a direct line. So just keep that in mind. That said, to teach the Holocaust is a huge topic, and I'm going to tell you how we can help you with the Holocaust Survivor Memoirs program. And there we go. I'm going to go through this very quickly because I know that there are questions to be answered. We've published 126 survivor memoirs. We work to collect memoirs that were written by Holocaust survivors who came to Canada after the war. These are Canadian stories. We fact check and publish them, and every single book is available free to schools and libraries across the country in French and in English. These are valuable resources. These are short anthologies that allow for students to take a little glimpse into a story, or thick books that allow students to create deep connections with fellow Canadians. We help teachers teach this material. We created a booklet, 12 pages, that's an adaptation of the 80-page booklet that was created by the IRA for teaching and learning recommendations on the Holocaust. In this 12 pages, it's basically a guide for educators to help them feel confident teaching the topic, defining what was the Holocaust, why do I want my students to learn about this, and how do I respectfully, safely, and successfully teach about it. In 12 pages, it's a reflection journal. We can help walk you through it. Everything we do, whether it's sending the books, doing teacher training, and holding workshops, is all free. We've covered the cost of substitute teachers, so teachers can come. We just recently finished we're in the middle of a week with York Region in partnership with Facing History and Ourselves and the Toronto Holocaust Museum. We have a few days of teacher training planned for the TDSB in February. If you want us to come, invite us. If it's hard for you to get release time, or you need us to help cover the cost or partial cost of substitutes, we will do it. We value this learning time, and we want nothing to stand in the way of teachers taking the time to do this. This image is from our core content from the first step. I'm going to fly through this. So we offer teacher training. We can do this virtually, we can do it in person, we could do a half day, and we do it with trusted partners. You just heard from Leora, and soon you'll hear from Rachel from the Toronto Holocaust Museum. We offer resources for students. Every single book, whether you want 40 copies for your classroom of one book, or all of our books for your library and books every year, they're yours. Whatever you need, we can give you for the grade 6 curriculum to meet those needs, or for high school, which I know is something that teachers are rethinking, as the announcement to keep it in the grade 10 curriculum, but to rethink how it's being done was just shared. We have short films that are a snippet into the survivor lives. Some are animated. Oh, if I click this, I don't want it to play, so I'm going to try and skip through it. I feel like I'm 100 years old trying to get through this. We have Recollection, which is an interactive space for students to guide themselves through safely without any inappropriate or graphic images, to learn about survivor life, or one particular survivor story, or thematically. So whether it's looking at pre-war daily life or Jewish persecution before the war, everything is safe for students to do. And then they can learn about a survivor, read a little activity, and fill in some of the questions. We have lots of different activities. We have longer 2 or 3 lessons that look at rescue and righteous among the nations, hidden children and identity, and what it meant to hide your identity during the Holocaust, and how students choose to identify. We have a program that looks at hearing history. We released 5 audiobooks, 4 of which are narrated by Holocaust survivors. If you'd like access to those, please let me know. We have something that allows students to safely look at the human experience of Auschwitz through survivor Met story. This is definitely for a high school audience. We have a beautiful new exhibit that looks at education that was disrupted by something that changed the world, the Holocaust, and how to look at what life was like before, during, and after the Holocaust through the lens of education. If you look through and click on this QR code, you can register or sign up for free books. We'll send them to you. There's no catch. And please be in touch with anything you need. And I'm here for any questions, even to guide you in the right direction, to say, we can't do this, but we know who can. So thank you so much for taking the time to listen to me. And thank you, UJ, for including me.
Thanks so much, Jody. Next, we have Jenna Potash, who is my fellow colleague at UJA. She is the Director of Capacity Building with UJA's Israel Engagement.
Thank you so much, Jordana, and good evening, everyone. As Jordana said, I work with UJ's Israel Engagement Department, and our department oversees much of the Immersive Israel Experience programming. So those are programs that are going to Israel, whether they're for internships, academic programs, gap year programs, or our teen leadership programs from March the Living to our Diller Teen Fellows. And of course, since everything has happened since October 7th, we've really been focusing on how we can support public school students. We've been hearing from various teachers and educators, board members from different boards across Ontario and whether those schools have, are 80% Jewish or 5% Jewish, or you might have that one Jewish student. We know there's various boards and educators that are really trying to support those Jewish students right now. So we've developed our Israel Engagement School Task Force, as well as our Shinshini Mobilization Program. And for some of you on these calls, you might have already seen us at your schools over the last couple weeks, and over the next few weeks, we'll be really going into public schools and boards all across Peel, York, and TDSB with our Shinshinim and with some of our task force facilitators to really execute and facilitate workshops that we have professionally developed. And I'm going to go through some of those workshops and what we can bring to your school and school board. Now, what's really great about these workshops is they can be adapted for any age. And we've been running these programs for all ages, starting with kindergarten, working our way through the elementary schools and through high schools as well. And also many with college and university age students in Hillels. So I'm going to go through what some of the workshops that you could expect to see from our task force. And if this is something that you want to get involved in, of course, reach out. But I want to go through what we can kind of offer and how we can accommodate and support your students by bringing various programming into the schools. So we've really developed 4 core workshops that, as I said, can really be adaptable for any ages. Our first workshop focuses on being and feeling Jewish right now, sharing circles and supportive spaces. So what we've seen from students, really from grade 5 all the way through high school, is students are starting to ask questions. They're seeing things online. They really want to support each other. And what the goals of this workshop are is to connect about the events, that have happened in Israel, and really connect them through their sense of community, reaffirm safety and resilience within that school environment. Of course, so that's also bringing in board resources, through this workshop to find out and identify for students what can really support them, and really just reaffirm for students that they can have their emotions and concerns articulated. So throughout this workshop, we provide various essential questions, and we provide the facilitators with everything that they're needed to facilitate these workshops. And again, they can be customized. So how to set the space up, what are all the resources and materials to run the activities. So this is what we look at when we look at this type of workshop and how to run it. I'd like to go through another one of our workshops right here for you. And this is another one that's really big with a theme through UJ is volunteerism and acts of solidarity. So many of our students, especially in our high school age and our older, grade 6 to 8, are asking, what can we do, right? These are young people. They're hopeful. They want to turn these acts of solidarity into something tangible. So we want to work through to help your school and your classes have workshops that will enable your students to express themselves through those acts of solidarity. So, many students might be feeling anxious or curious and want to take an action-oriented task into an activity. We want to help them feel empowered and hopeful, about Israel during this time, and take those emotions and power that into something good, and then provide them with a plan on how to help. So that's really enabling students on how to help and how to bring those emotions and those anxieties into tangible activities. So we look at what they can currently do in the space. and in the community right now. And that could be working with various organizations like Genesis and CEJA. I'm just going to go through that right now. Looking at, various community opportunities. So we constantly update this activity as well, and what we're looking for. So what's available right now? Are we letter writing? How can we mobilize these teens? Are there local rallies they can go to or volunteer initiatives? We also include various resources like the Unlearn It anti-Semitism resources and Israel Unpacked. So really providing students with different resources. And before I wrap up, I'm just going to touch briefly on the other two workshop topics. One is a more delicate topic of current events in Israel. So we do try to tackle the current events in Israel, age appropriate, of course, in a non-graphic way, and providing students in a workshop space that gives teachers and students a space to learn and a space to share their emotions and what they're seeing. We also run an activity for teens that's been very meaningful over the last few weeks on social media and how to process what they're seeing on social media. Again, that really focuses on their sharing. And lastly, we focus on Canadian values, empowerment, solidarity. So bringing back to the community and what they can do at home, and really encouraging confidence in Jewish students, allies who are curious about Israel, and providing a welcoming, inclusive space that encourages multiple touch points to understand and work with Israel and through the Jewish community. So as I was saying, I'm going to stop my sharing right here and just wrap up. We can provide these task force experiences through our Shinshanim. So mobilizing our Shinshanim, which we have brought and had them do activities through all the classes, age appropriate, and doing that also with more sensitive topics, like I said, with social media and tackling current events with those high school students, and also bringing our Shinshanim, which is also a great peer-to-peer support. So I will provide my contact information in the chat. And if you're interested in bringing our Shinshanim or our task force to your school, we'd be happy to speak. Thank you so much, Jordana.
Thanks so much, Jenna. That task force booklet turned out really, really amazing. I'm excited to go through it. Finally, we have, and certainly not least, Rachel Karstadt, who is an education manager with the Toronto Holocaust Museum.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, making time in your evenings, which I'm sure is as busy as ours, to join us and learn a little bit about what each of these organizations can offer. I'm just going to make this a little bit bigger so everyone can see it. I have too many things open today. Amazing. So I want to start off by echoing what both Leora and Jody had expressed at the very beginning of this, which is that Holocaust education should not be the only form of anti-Semitism education in your classroom that your students are being exposed to, but it is an important part of anti-Semitism education as a whole. I am going to start at the top of my presentation. There we go. First of all, I want to introduce myself. My name is Rachel Karstadt. I am the education manager at the Toronto Holocaust Museum. I hold a unique portfolio of tasks and community groups that I work with directly. Those include leading tours specifically for university-age students, working with teacher groups, including developing and facilitating professional development, both on my own and on our own as the museum, and as well with partners such as Facing History and Ourselves and the Azrieli Foundation. On top of that, I also support and facilitate school groups. So all of our school visits, I am one of the educators that assist with those on a regular basis. And lastly, I assist in developing pedagogy and educational programs for students of all ages. So a little bit about the Toronto Holocaust Museum. We were formerly the Nuremberg Holocaust Education Center. We are currently located on the Sherman campus in the Prosserman JCC in North York. Our museum space is a brand new facility which opened in June, and we've only been welcoming student groups since the beginning of October. Our museum is designed for the learners of today, utilizing technology and inquiry-based learning. Today I'm going to talk to you about both museum visits and some other resources that we have created or co-created that may be useful in your classrooms. So our museum visits are fully facilitated by Toronto Holocaust Museum educators and the education team, and they're designed to give context about the Holocaust from a specifically Jewish and Canadian Jewish lens. Our visits include a facilitated welcome by the Toronto Holocaust Museum education team, which is designed to give context about the museum, the choice to place the museum within the Prosserman JCC, as well as Jewish migration and the bigger Toronto Jewish community, as well as the connection between vibrant Jewish life in the GTA now and in Europe pre-Holocaust. Our visits consist of multiple portions. They all start with a screening of 2 films. Every group sees a film that's made up of photos and video clips of pre-war Europe and vibrant Jewish life in pre-war Europe. Students in grade 6 to 8 see a film titled Childhood Interrupted. We will talk about the Childhood Interrupted program as a whole in a few minutes. And students in secondary school, as well as adults coming into the museum, see a film titled Setting the Stage for Genocide, which provides context in the historical lead up to the Holocaust. Our museum visits are self-guided, so a Toronto Holocaust Museum education staff member gives an orientation on our space as well as our cutting edge technology, and then we allow students to self-direct their visits. As I mentioned, we have some cutting edge technology within our museum, including 11 touchscreen life-size survivor testimony stations, which feature short video clips of Holocaust survivors giving their own testimony. Each clip is designed to answer a specific question and is 2 minutes in length or shorter. There are tens of hours of footage spread between the 11 stations within the museum space. In addition, we have 4 touchscreen maps and timelines, stations that set up and provide context between geographic movement and timelines of the Holocaust and situations and time before and after. Lastly, for school groups, we have augmented reality storyliners, which are on mobile tablets. Students get to use these through the museum to investigate their space on their own. The storyliners also direct students to age-appropriate content within the museum and add a personal narrative to their visit. So there are 4 different storyliners that are currently available within the museum, and they are aimed at multiple ages, including middle school and high school groups. And we have 2 available in French for French language learners as well. Every visit to the museum is ended with a debrief discussion in our learning lab. Debriefs are facilitated by Toronto Holocaust Museum education staff, and they revolve around self-reflective questions which we pose to students and educators. These debriefs can be customized for the unique needs of each group, and they also can be customized to help address issues of contemporary anti-Semitism. I find it very important to note that our debriefs and our learning lab are designed to be a safe space for students. They're designed in a way that they are quiet and welcoming, and are also away from the public and the hustle and bustle of the broader JCC community to encourage sharing. We are currently very filled up for visits. We have lots of availability in May and June, with very limited availability in March and April. Visits are a half hour, and we can accommodate up to 70 students at one time. We currently cannot accommodate groups that are larger than 70. We provide our resources for free. So right now our Holocaust Museum visits are free for groups, as well as all of our digital resources are free. Unlike some of the other organizations that have presented today, we do not go to schools to lead workshops or other experiences at this moment. We ask that you come to us or use our resources that are available. I want to talk also today about the 3 other resources that I'd like to discuss. There are a number of other resources that are available to educators that are available on our website, and we will be providing links to after tonight's presentation. So the very first resource I would like to speak to is Childhood Interrupted. This was launched for educators earlier this week. This was launched on Monday. This is both an in-museum resource and an out-of-museum resource. In museum, there's a unique film as well as a tablet storyliner experience and pre and post visit educator resources that are being used within the museum to go with this. This is specifically designed, Childhood Interrupted is specifically designed to meet the learning outcomes of the new grade 6 Holocaust curriculum. In the coming months, this will become a digital resource as well, including a virtual experience for students and educators who live too far from the museum or visits are not feasible in person. The curriculum resource is currently available in print and English within the museum and will become widely available by PDF and print in both French and English in the coming weeks. The second resource I'd like to present on or draw your attention to is the Toronto Holocaust Museum's online learning platform for educators. This platform is a resource for teachers to learn the skills that they need to bring into classrooms in the future. It includes 9 different short asynchronous educator learning modules on a variety of topics. Some of the topics that I like to bring up and I think are very useful in groups like this are ones such as online hate and media literacy, survivor stories, and teaching with primary resources. Please note that this resource is totally free, but you do need to create a login in order to access it. Lastly, I would like to bring your attention to a resource that my colleague Leora presented on so beautifully already today, which is the Unlearn It education module we created in partnership with CEJA and Facing History and Ourselves. I really encourage you to explore it on your own. And as Leora said, feel free to explore not just the educator portion, but also the parent portion. If you have any questions or any questions, or if you want to know anything else about the museum visits in person or some of the resources we offer, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. Thank you so much.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Rachel. So I think now we're all just going to come back for the Q&A. So if my fellow panelists want to go back on video and unmute themselves, we can go ahead and start. And I'll just say for those that have to jump off, that following this webinar, we will be sending you an email that has a recording of this webinar and also all of these links to these great resources that all of our panelists have discussed tonight, in addition to others from other organizations as well. So look out for that. But let's just jump right in now to our Q&A. So the first one is, please let us know which of your organizations are partners with Peel, York, and TDSB. Okay, so as a reminder, so we have Jody from Azrieli Foundation. Len, you mentioned you put up your hand, you are as well. And Jenna, Leora from Facing History and Ours, Rachel, Toronto Holocaust Museum. Okay, great. And by putting up your hand, are you partners with all 3 of these mentioned ones? No. Rachel, which one are you partnered with?
Toronto Holocaust Museum is an official excursion of the TDS on the official excursion list for TDSB schools. We do, and we have, and we continue to welcome field trips from all boards in Southern Ontario. We've had visits so far from Toronto Public and Catholic, York Public and Catholic, Peel Public, as well as boards further afield such as Durham and Peterborough.
Great. And Len, what about you?
In terms of the work we've done, and again, we are focusing on teachers, administrators, and trustees. So we've done a fair amount of work with York Region, with the Toronto District School Board, with the Ottawa Carleton District School Board, and we have just started a relationship with Peel, and we're in discussions with Durham.
Okay, thank you. And Jenna, yourself too, all 3? The task force?
So currently we're working quite closely with York and Peel, but we could work more with TDSB if there was a request from an individual teacher.
Okay, thank you. Next question. Why are DSB hosted an equity conference today and provided picture books for sale that share the Palestinian narrative, but had none with the Israeli perspective? We need access to picture books that share the history of Israel in our schools. So does anybody have recommendations on titles for picture books with Israeli history or the Israel perspective? Okay, no worries. What we can do. Oh, Jody, do you have
No, I
some
was
thoughts?
gonna suggest reaching out to PJ Library or some like that. There must be support in some spaces like that to get different perspectives, because the Israeli perspective is also sort of this like, you know, not like painted with one brush, right? So there's just like many Israeli perspectives, and I'm sure there are many books that like PJ Library could recommend.
That's a great suggestion. Okay, so now we have a question about whether something is anti-Semitism. So when a principal of a school says that Nelson Mandela was considered a terrorist and then became president of a country later on, I guess this principal did so after mentioning that Hamas is a terrorist organization. Would that kind of discussion be considered anti-Semitism? Yes, Len.
No, I don't think it's anti-Semitism. I do think there are some other deficiencies with the argument, as I think the principals tried to put it forward. This goes to the whole chestnut of one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter. That's true, I think, only for the people who are morally blind. The Michael Walzer wrote an article recently where he said that even the oppressed have responsibilities. So simply because you are oppressed does not mean you can go out, right, and murder people. Also, I think, although this is not my area of expertise and I'm prepared to be corrected on it, Nelson Mandela began his work in fighting apartheid in the 1940s. He persisted as being a staunch nonviolent advocate for change until 1960 or 1961, which I think was the date of the Sharpsville massacre. So it was only, one could argue that it was only after nonviolence failed, right, that he turned to terrorism. And indeed, I'm not aware that he himself did not go to prison for terrorism. He went to prison because he attempted to overthrow the government, or that was the charge. If somebody may know that there was a 15-year period where Hamas did not advocate murder and genocide and the destruction of Israel, but it seems to me that they jumped directly to it. So if they want to do a comparison with Nelson Mandela, at least from my point of view, the comparison does not hold up historically. Unofficially,
Jordana, can I just
my opinion.
say something? Can I
Yeah,
say
Lior,
something
go ahead.
about comparisons in general right now?
Of course.
I think that we need to really be very careful in helping our students. I mean, this is an adult situation with a principal, but comparisons where we oversimplify, we ignore the particulars of each history that we're looking at. What's happening now is very different than what was happening in South Africa. Hamas is different than Nelson Mandela. We need to actually equip our students, because they're getting this from every place. These facile comparisons, we saw them in some of the propaganda pictures that Len showed. We see them over and over again. We like to our brains want us to create simple narratives, and these are not simple narratives. So simply saying that to a principal, helping, I mean, power dynamic, that may not be possible, but certainly helping our students recognize that facile comparisons are not helpful. This is very, very important right now. And very much what Facing History does. I mean, we are because we look at different historical case studies, we're very careful in helping our students understand how to make comparisons, connections, well, without being facile and unhelpful.
Thanks, Leora, and thank you, Len, for that. That's really helpful. Jesse, this is the question for you specifically about Stand With Us. Do the public boards welcome you? We've had some administrators that don't want the Tour of Humanity, which is a program with the Simon Wiesenthal Center. How can we get you, as in Stand With Israel, or sorry, Stand With Us, if they think that your organization is one-sided?
It's an absolutely fair question. We focus particularly on the schools where we have students. When a student raises a request to their administration or their teacher to bring in a program or a speaker, that's where we've found the most success getting into these schools. And the same can be said for teachers as well. We are not by any means, despite a reputation of being slightly right-leaning, we are bipartisan and we are an education organization. So typically where we've found success is when a teacher has approached us and wanted to bring us into the school, we'll work with that teacher first to assess sort of what the topic might be, what presentation, workshop, or program we'd like to accomplish together. And then we present that to the teacher to bring to their board or their principal or whoever that might be. And then once they can see the content, they're a lot more likely to bring us in. So when it comes to a student, it's fairly, green lit and easy for us. But when it comes to teachers or community members, we found success in presenting the board with the material first and showing them that it comes from a very well-resourced educational perspective and that it's not the rah-rah Zionist, Israel is great that they might be expecting from what they see, otherwise. So that would be my recommendation is reach out, let's have the conversation, and we can actually provide you the material first.
Thanks, Jesse. Okay, so just a couple more questions left before we wrap up. What would be the best resource for a K-5 school in the TDSB?
So if it's appropriate, our Shinshanim are a fantastic resource for the younger grades. Currently, they're immersed in day schools, working with synagogues, working with younger students. And right now, they have been on a tour of public schools this week, next week, and going into late January, working with students of all different backgrounds from K to 8. And the reception has been absolutely wonderful. Running age appropriate activities. Today they ran 6 hours of activities from JK all the way up to grade 8. So if someone is looking for that type of interaction, it could be a really great resource.
And I'll also add, unfortunately, this panelist couldn't make it tonight, but the Friends of Simon Wiesenthal Center also offers some programming, I think as young as grade 3. And we're going to be sending out in that resource document those programs through Simon Wiesenthal that might be relevant here. Yeah, Jody.
I also just wanted to that question, be really careful about what we take on to teach kids in the elementary school ages, that even though this may be something that we may feel a personal, concern with, or that there may be conversation that's being had, how we get into the details and the particulars of it really should be sensitive and delicate depending on the grade that's in front of you. So while we have memoirs that we say are appropriate for 11 plus, we don't necessarily recommend that for every single student. You have to know your students. You have to know what the best approach for them is. Another province recently announced that Holocaust is appropriate from kindergarten to grade 12, and I completely disagree. And we've said no to classrooms that have invited us in for grade 5 and younger. So really just knowing your students and knowing that how to talk about difficult things, whether it's the Holocaust or the current climate, it's not always necessary to jump into the conversation to the level that you would normally do it at a historical or an in-depth societal discussion that you would have with an adult. So just to be aware of the right resources that are being offered to you, even if it's suggested at a younger age, to really take it with a critical eye to make sure that your students can appreciate what they're hearing.
Thanks so much.
Can I also
Jody.
say something quickly,
Yeah.
Jody? Sorry, Jordana. I think that Jenna may have presented some of this in what she was presenting, but actually I think that some of the best ways to combat anti-Semitism is actually to bring Jewish life, Jewish joy, Jewish people, complexity of Jewish identities, who Jewish people are. I mean, we did a workshop today with the Holocaust Museum and the Azrieli Foundation for grade 6 teachers. And I asked the group, in a K through 12 scope of learning in Ontario, when and how are students learning about Jewish people? What's the lens? And if we don't teach grade 6 really well and really carefully and include, I mean, for grade 6 teachers, the Jewish life that lives in sort of strand A, but the Jewish life where Jewish students are learning about Jewish people through the lens of persecution and the Holocaust. And so in those younger grades, elevate Jewish people, Jewish joy, Jewish celebration. That is a very important way that you can help combat anti-Semitism by humanizing Jewish people.
And sorry, Leora, you've inspired me just to share one other thing. In our presentation, one of the things that we talk about is, and I tell this story that when I worked for Canadian Jewish Congress, we had the opportunity to work with new cops, right? And the first year we did this, I was very pleased with what I had set up. First we went to the Holocaust Education Center, right? And there was a class in there. So we talked about that, right? And then, of course, we talked about security and, and all the threats facing the Jewish community. And then we ended off by going to Earl Bales Park, and we went to the Holocaust Memorial. Right. And at the end, I thought to myself, well, that was pretty good. And the cop went away, with his notebook filled with notes. And I was sitting at my desk in the afternoon, and I thought to myself, my God, what did I just do? I have essentially reduced, 5,735 years of vibrant Jewish history to a death cult. Hitler, right? He is dead and gone, right? The Jews are still here. Nazism represented a small chunk, right, of Jewish history. We should be talking about not only is it important for us to talk about Jews as being something other than victims, but frankly, if we want other communities to care about us, to see us as being valuable, we have to show the many ways in which the Jewish community has contributed to the wealth and vitality of the public square. That we have built social capital. We have to talk about that. So by all means, let's talk about the Holocaust. Let's also talk about Leonard Cohen, right? And let's talk about Mordecai Richler, and let's talk about Rosalie Abella, right? And Wayne and Schuster and Superman, and all the ways, right, that the Jews have contributed what James Cahill called the gifts of the Jews. Okay, so yesh koyach, Leora, right? Because I hadn't mentioned it, but you're absolutely right. If we don't matter, if we don't count, why should anybody care about us?
Thank you. It's a great point. I guess just time for one more question, and it's directed to Rachel and the Holocaust Museum. So I guess one of the barriers for this person in getting to the museum is just around busing. So do you know of any kind of funding that's provided to help subsidize the cost of busing classrooms or students to the museum?
I do. So right now there is no funding from the Holocaust Museum to pay for busing. We recommend that educators and schools who are struggling with field trips and with funding for buses apply for a Day Trippers grant. It's the Day Trippers Children's Charity. You can find them at daytrippers.ca. They believe strongly in experiential education. And one of the things that they provide is grants to cover the cost of transportation to schools. If the person who asked that question is in Toronto, many of our TDSB schools arrive to the museum using public transit. They come right up to the Bathurst Street entrance using the number 7 Bathurst bus.
Yes, Jody.
I also just want to add that today there was a day of teacher training for York Region, grade 6 teachers. And we did it in partnership with Facing History at the Toronto Holocaust Museum. And that the cost of substitutes, the cost of busing were covered by the Azrieli Foundation as part of the work that we do. So while we can't help with busing students in, we can help with bringing teachers to the museum as part of a day of professional development and learning about how to bring this into your classroom, so that you would then maybe be interested in working to get these grants to bring your students in, but also to have an amazing day of learning together from our 3 different organizations.
Great. Thanks so much, Jody, and thank you, Rachel. So I think that's all we have time for questions. So we'll just wrap up. Thank you to all of our panelists who were amazing. You're all so busy with your own lives, with your insane jobs, and you've made time to be here tonight. Thank you so, so much. And thank you so much to all of our educators on the call. We really hope that you're going to leave tonight feeling a little more empowered and equipped to have some of these conversations in the classroom. But if anything, I really just hope you leave knowing that all of us on the call are here for you. You're free to reach out to us. We're going to send you, again, this resource document that's going to have other folks that you can reach out to as well for support. And personally, I'll just say for myself, I want to keep hearing about what issues you're facing and if there's anything that you think we can do to help. So please feel free to shoot me an email. I'd love to hear from you. And you'll get a follow-up email with the recording of the webinar and this resource document, how to register for the Hanukkah party and the Israel booster, probably sometime tomorrow. So thank you so much to everybody and have a wonderful rest of your night.